Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're diving headfirst into the wild world of the Griffin family. A place where anything can happen, from chugging beers to having chats with God. If you've ever wondered how a dad can get fired, collect a ridiculous amount of unemployment checks, and then get acquitted in court thanks to some good old-fashioned mind control, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the Griffin family's hilarious antics. Episode 1 kicks off with the Griffin family gathered in the living room. Lois, the devoted mom, reminds her husband, Peter, that tomorrow is Meg's baptism ceremony, and he needs to behave seriously. As usual, Peter makes an empty promise and seems completely uninterested. That night, Peter secretly sneaks off to the Drunken Clam bar with his buddies Quagmire and Cleveland to watch a football game. Caught up in the booze and excitement, he gets totally wasted, causes a scene, and ends up being thrown out of the bar in a drunken mess. The next morning, Peter wakes up with a pounding headache, only to realize he overslept and missed Meg's baptism, leaving Lois deeply disappointed and furious. Peter drags himself to work, but while dozing off at the factory, he accidentally causes an accident and gets fired. Afraid Lois will find out he lost his job, Peter keeps it a secret. He files for unemployment and, due to a government error, starts receiving an absurdly large weekly check. Instead of reporting it, Peter goes on a wild spending spree, buying a massive TV, inflatable pool, toys for the kids. The Griffins suddenly find themselves living in luxury, and Lois starts getting suspicious. Ridden with guilt, Peter decides to come clean and confesses everything at the government office. But instead of praise, he gets arrested for welfare fraud and is taken to court. At the trial, things look grim. His defense attorney is hopeless, and the prosecutor is relentless. Just when it seems all hope is lost, Stewie, the genius baby with world domination plans, secretly uses a mind control device to manipulate the judge. The result: Peter is declared not guilty and returns home to a joyful reunion. The episode ends with the Griffins back together again. Peter promises Lois he'll try to live more honestly, though we all know that's never going to happen. Episode 2 begins with Peter receiving news that his father, Francis Griffin, is coming to visit. Peter has a tense relationship with his dad, a stern, old-school man who is extremely religious. Even as a child, Peter never received his father's approval or affection. When Francis arrives, the mood in the house turns heavy. He constantly criticizes Peter and Lois's parenting, claiming the kids are undisciplined, especially Stewie, whom he suspects might be demonic due to his strange intelligence. He even insists Meg and Chris need more rigorous religious education and declares the family should live by God's word. Longing for his father's approval, Peter decides to take the whole family to church with Francis. But things quickly spiral. Peter disrupts the mass trying to act pious, and Stewie plots against what he calls religious brainwashing. Francis grows increasingly frustrated, convinced Peter is still the same failure he's always been. Determined to impress his father, Peter attempts a grand religious gesture. He steals a sacred artifact from the church as a gift. Naturally, the plan backfires. Francis is horrified, not flattered, and even more disappointed that his son would commit such sacrilege. Peter is arrested and thrown in jail. While behind bars, he has a comically absurd conversation with God, in true Family Guy style. God reassures him that he doesn't need to be someone else. He just needs to be himself. Peter is released and returns home. In a rare and fleeting moment of sincerity, Francis begrudgingly admits that Peter did try, even if he's still not exactly proud. Francis leaves, and Peter is left feeling both relieved and a little empty. The episode closes with a classic scene: the Griffin family watching TV together, cracking jokes, while Stewie secretly begins plotting to save humanity from religion, in his own bizarre way. Episode 3 begins with Lois busily preparing for Stewie's first birthday, the youngest Griffin child. She wants to throw a perfect party at Cheesy Charlie's, a restaurant filled with games and wacky cartoon mascots for kids. However, when Peter goes to make the reservation, he accidentally offends the staff, and the party gets cancelled. Not wanting Lois to find out he messed everything up, Peter decides to cover it up by throwing a fake birthday party at home, hoping she won't notice. He sets it up with a birthday cake, balloons, and even a clown. But, of course, in typical Griffin fashion, chaos quickly ensues. Meanwhile, Meg, Peter's eldest daughter, tries to befriend a group of popular girls at school. Hoping to be invited to a grown-up party, she lies and claims her mom is dying to gain their sympathy. This leads to unexpected consequences when one of the girls turns out to be part of a mysterious cult planning a mass suicide to meet the aliens. At the same time, Stewie is facing a terrifying obsession. He believes the birthday party is actually a trap to send him into the death vortex, meaning back into the womb. With his usual smarts and paranoia, he tries to build a ray gun to defend himself against this reverse birth conspiracy. The episode's climax comes as all these storylines converge. Meg nearly gets dragged into the cult's ritual, Lois discovers the truth about the party and blows up at Peter, and Stewie is on the verge of activating his homemade weapon. But just in time, everything unravels in the usual chaotic but comedic way. Peter saves Meg from the cult, Lois forgives Peter for trying so hard to salvage the birthday party, and Stewie, rather than being sucked back into the womb, happily eats his cake, putting his world domination plans on hold for now. Episode 3 ends with the whole Griffin family gathered together, warm and wonderfully unhinged, in classic Family Guy style, a bizarre blend of family comedy and social satire. Episode 4 starts with the Griffin family getting ready to attend Chris's school play. Lois insists Peter be there on time, but he makes up a ridiculous excuse, claiming he got injured by an imaginary bicycle. At the performance, Chris, despite his clumsiness, gives a decent show. But then Peter causes a huge scene by mistakenly attacking a pregnant woman, thinking she was threatening him. As a result, Peter is sentenced to house arrest, forced to wear an ankle monitor and not leave the house. Bored out of his mind, Peter decides to open a bar in the basement. Surprisingly, Peter's makeshift home bar becomes a hit in the neighborhood. Friends and neighbors flock to it to drink and hang out. Peter thrives in his new role as the enthusiastic at-home bar owner. However, Peter gets so wrapped up in his new business that he begins to neglect his family, especially Lois. Feeling ignored, Lois decides to join the fun by performing live music at the bar. Unexpectedly, she dazzles everyone with her seductive voice and becomes the star of the show. Peter, feeling threatened and insecure, starts getting jealous, thinking his wife is getting way too much attention. Meanwhile, Stewie is back on his usual world domination grind. This time, trying to build a time machine to escape potty training, which he sees as a humiliating defeat of his dignity. Peter grows increasingly jealous of Lois's popularity, leading him to sabotage her performance out of spite. Lois, furious, calls him out for always being childish and selfish. Eventually, after a mess of misunderstandings and mayhem, Peter realizes how badly he's behaved and apologizes. He shuts down the bar, removes the ankle monitor after serving his sentence, and promises to grow up, at least, until the next episode. Episode 4 wraps up with the family watching TV together, while Stewie tests his time machine, only to accidentally send himself back to the womb. His absolute worst nightmare. So, that's a rundown of the crazy yet strangely charming events in the first 4 episodes of Family Guy. From a baptism gone wrong to a heart-pounding birthday party, and even a wild battle against potty training, the Griffins never fail to surprise us. If you had fun, don't forget to hit that like button and drop a comment telling me which moment stood out to you the most. And remember to subscribe so you won't miss any upcoming videos, where Peter always keeps his word. Or rather, breaks his promises in the most spectacular way.